Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today we are discussing all of the Week 13 action from the 2026 season of the Pro Football Sim over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. So as always, we'll start today with our stats and summaries from each Week 13 game, ending with my choices for the players of the week. We'll do a quick injury update, look at the NFL standings by division, and then our feature today is on cap space versus expiring contracts. A couple weeks ago, we looked at different position groups that had expiring contracts coming up. This week, instead of going by division, we're going to go by team. We're going to highlight a few teams who have a lot of extension offers and just give some basic ideas of teams that might be in a cap crunch, depending on who they choose to bring back. And then, of course, we will end with a preview for the upcoming week, Week 14. So thank you for stopping by, and let's go ahead and dive right in. So it was an all Los Angeles game on Thursday night, with the Chargers upsetting the Rams by a final score of 34-17. The Chargers started things off right on their very first drive, going 9 plays in 79 yards. Harrison Rodriguez had a big 29-yard run, and that set up Pedro Trevecchio for a touchdown from 2 yards out to open the scoring. The Rams got a field goal, and then after a defensive stop on their second possession, Avila hit Baldwin for 18, and then Anthony Larry for 16, and ultimately a 6-yard touchdown pass to LeClaire gave the Rams their first lead of the day at 10-7. But the Chargers would respond with Aguilera finding Garcia for 17, and then a friendly defensive pass interference call helping them convert a 3rd and 15. That actually set them up with first and goal, and Aguilera ran it in from there 9 yards out for the touchdown to bring the Chargers back on top 14-10. And then an Avila interception by Alan Laurent led to a Harrison Rodriguez touchdown run from 2 yards out, extending the lead to 21. The Rams then drove down to the Chargers' 31-yard line, but another interception, this one by linebacker Alexander Williams, ended that drive without points. Chargers would take possession, drive to the Rams' 15, but unfortunately run out of time, though that means they still went at halftime up 21-10. In their first drive of the third quarter, Chargers saw Edwin Garcia carry the ball for a 24-yard gain, and then that drive ended with Aguilera hitting his tight end Sanchez for a 5-yard touchdown, stretching the lead to 28-10. Avila then threw another interception to Alan Laurent that led to a field goal. Rams would not get in scoring distance again until midway through the fourth quarter, when Bruce Dawson took a screen pass and ran it 34 yards in for the touchdown. But at that point, it was still 34-17. Rams were trailing with 6:13 left in the game. Aguilera's one mistake of the game, an interception by linebacker Tram Singh, put the Rams in position in Charger territory, but Avila would throw his 4th interception of the game on that next drive, his 3rd to Laurent, which would eliminate any comeback attempt. Chargers ran off the final 4 minutes and would win. Philip Avila, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 4 interceptions. Looks like the Rams had designed their game plan to avoid Roswell Miller, who was actually the current league leader in interceptions. But they found Laurent instead, who got his first interception of the year, and then his second and third. Aguilera had a great game, 19-24, 195 yards, touchdown, and that one pick. Also 105 yards on 18 carries. Harrison Rodriguez added 78 yards and a touchdown on 13 carries, and the Chargers beat the Rams 34-17. Moving on to the Sunday games, we had another upset with the Bills beating the Steelers. 23-14 was the final there. Steelers would score first. On their first drive, it was newly acquired Ariel Lemon Jr., who would break off a 39-yard run for the touchdown. And then Asensio would throw an interception to Gomez Rodriguez on Buffalo's first drive. Lemon Jr. would have another great run of 29 yards. That would ultimately set up Robert Morris for a 5-yard touchdown run. And the Steelers were up 14-0 early. But Buffalo would work their way back. In the second quarter, after getting a couple of field goals, Asensio found Donald Kelly for a big 31-yard gain, and then Mickey Brogdon broke a 53-yard touchdown run. The extra point made it 14-13, with the lead all the way back down to 1. Late in the second quarter, Buffalo would miss a 51-yard field goal that would have given them the lead. Then Pittsburgh drove into Buffalo territory, but time expired before the half, so no points there before the half for either team. Still a 1-point game. In the third quarter, Buffalo would connect with a field goal, a 24-yarder, to put them out in front for the first time. Then in the fourth quarter, Pittsburgh intercepted Asensio at the Steeler 40-yard line. Simeon Rea came away with that interception. But the Pittsburgh offense would unfortunately go 3 and out and were unable to retake the lead. And then on the next drive, Asensio got hot, went 5 of 6 for 78 yards, and ultimately ran it in himself from 3 yards out for the game-clinching touchdown with about 2 minutes left in the game. Robert Morris would drive the team to midfield, throw a meaningless interception to Gary Lindblad, and that would be the final. So Asensio, 2 interceptions, but 33 of 49 for 460 yards, including 242 to Donald Kelly on 12 catches. Ariel Lemon Jr., 118 yards for the Steelers and a touchdown. Robert Morris added 56 yards rushing and a touchdown. But ultimately it was the Bills who come away with the AFC win here. The Jaguars beat the Atlanta Falcons 19-12. Atlanta started out with the first good drive. They drove down to the Jacksonville 37-yard line, thanks to several big completions from Rashawn Lyons. But then Lyons would throw an interception to Zach McCutcheon, which would end that drive without any points. Jacksonville would then drive for a bit and be forced to punt, but they would down the ensuing punt at the Falcons' 3-yard line. Falcons would go 3 and out, and their short punt would leave Jacksonville with a golden opportunity, starting a drive at the Atlanta 35. But 3 straight incompletions gave them nothing, and then they would punt for a touchback. And so no points after all of that field position battle. In the second quarter, with Jacksonville at that point leading 6-0, a James Rivera interception by Gregory Williams was taken back to the Jacksonville 30-yard line. Atlanta would drive down to the 4 and then unfortunately shank a field goal and still be looking for their first points. Going into the second half now, it was 6-3 when Lions went deep to Rafael Rosario for a 46-yard gain. That led to a touchdown pass to Richie Igwebuike from 4 yards out. They would miss the extra point, unfortunately, still leaving points on the board. So it was 9-6 there in the third quarter. And then later, Rivera would find his tight end Perez for 18 on a nice drive. Then Campaverde for 15. All of that led to a Ray field goal and a tying the game at 9. Jacksonville would get a defensive stop, get another drive going, get another field goal, take the lead 12-9. And then in the fourth quarter, Rivera found Hugh Kahn for a 36-yard gain, and then Campaverde for a 4-yard touchdown, helping the Jaguars pull away 19-9 at that point. Later in the fourth, Lions would finally get a big play, throwing to Igwebuike for another 20 yards, setting up a 45-yard field goal, making it 19-12 with 2:05 to go. Now it's interesting at that point. Had Atlanta made their earlier field goal and extra point, it would have been 19-13, and instead of kicking, the Falcons could have gone for it from the Jacksonville 28-yard line on a 4th and 1. But as it was, because they had missed those 2 kicks, they were down by 10. They needed 2 scores. It made sense to kick the field goal quickly and then try to get the ball back. Jacksonville would go 3 and out, but those 3 plays and the punt were enough to run the rest of the clock out, and Jacksonville would hold on to win. So James Rivera, just over 50% completions, 199 yards, and a touchdown from him. Rashawn Lyons, 17 of 37, 210 yards, a touchdown, and a pick for him. The Vegas Raiders pulled off a big division win, defeating the Chiefs by a final score of 37-17. 13. Casey started off strong. They went straight down the field on their first drive, and David Chop had a 30-yard touchdown run for the early 7-0 lead. On their next drive, Chop would have another great run, this one 28 yards, which would set up a field goal, making it 10-3. Raiders would equalize, though, in the second quarter, Hickson finding Blank for 23, then hitting Richards for 27, and then Cobb, for a 5-yard touchdown to even the game at 10. Then Kansas City, Chop would hit Ellswick twice on 2 good completions for a total of 40 yards. That would get them down to the Raiders' 15-yard line. But from there, the Chiefs got a false start penalty. They lost 10 yards on a sack. And then there was an illegal block penalty, which was 15 yards from the spot of the foul. So after all that, they were all the way back at the Vegas 46-yard line, and it was 2nd and 41. They failed to gain many yards, and so despite starting that set of downs from the 15, they had punt. So a big missed opportunity there. And then later in the second quarter, Kansas City drove again down to the Raiders' 32. But Chop would throw a pick to Kevin Cordova, and once again, a Chiefs promising drive, would end with no points. The third quarter started with yet another David Chop pick, this one to Malik Boyd, which the Raiders would turn into a field goal and a 13-10 lead. After the Chiefs got a field goal to tie things up, Hickson had some big throws. He had Blank for 22, Cobb for 22, and then Willie Irving had runs of 15 and 16 to get into the end zone and give the Raiders back the lead 20-13. After a defensive stop, Hickson was at it again, finding Blank for a 36-yard gain that set up a touchdown run by John Milner, making it 27-13. And then another Chop interception to Cordova, by Cordova, led to another touchdown pass, this one to James Blank. And the Raiders cruised from there, ultimately winning by 24. So James Hickson, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, including 187 yards and touchdown to James Blank on 11 catches. And Kevin Cordova, there's 3 big picks, Chop through 4 in total on the day. So despite big days from Daniel Ellswick on offense and Tony McCura with his 4 sacks on defense, Chiefs fall to the Raiders. Surprise, surprise, Tampa Bay played in a close defensive game, though it was a genuine surprise when they came out on top, winning 17-12. Tennessee's first drive, they got all the way down to the Buccaneers' 17-yard line, but then defensive end Brian Yoakum came up with a huge play for the Bucs, hitting Will Outman for a sack and a fumble, recovered by Jason Green of the Bucs, and denying the Titans their first points of the game. Later in the first quarter, Buccaneers free safety Richard Surges returned a punt 47 yards deep into Titan territory, and that led to a Kingery touchdown pass to his running back James Taylor from 10 yards out, and the Bucs were on the board first, 7-0. Surges was at it again in the second quarter. This time he did it all himself with a 73-yard punt return touchdown, making the lead 14-3 for the Buccaneers. But Tennessee defense wasn't ready to give it up just yet. In the third quarter, on just the third play of the half, Kingery threw a pick 6 to Sergio Collins. That made it 14-9. Titans would go for 2 and not get it. And then Tampa Bay on their next drive would go 48 yards in 13 plays. Despite all of that offensive production, though, they would only get a field goal, so it was still just 17-9. Tennessee responded, driving down to the Buccaneers' 30-yard line, getting a field goal of their own, bringing the lead back down to 5. In the fourth quarter, it looked like the Bucs could extend that lead, but Kingery was picked by Collins again at the Tennessee 35-yard line. And then Tennessee, on their very last drive of the game, would start at midfield, and they would drive to the Tampa Bay 15-yard line, but on 4th and 5, needing a touchdown to win, Will Outman's pass fell incomplete. Ball turned over on downs, and Tampa Bay held on to win. Kingery only completed 7 passes for 47 yards with a couple interceptions, but did have a touchdown. And Richard Surges did most of the work, 183 yards on 7 punt returns. So 1 touchdown and 1 return that set up a short field for another score. And Titans got all their points from Sergio Collins. Their 1 touchdown at least. He had 2 interceptions, 2 passes defended, and that touchdown. But unable to muster up enough offensive production, and the Buccaneers ended up winning. On Monday night, a wild game saw the Miami Dolphins beat Washington 41-40. This one started off a bit slow with a lot of big defensive plays, including Hammond throwing an interception on his very first drive, which led to a Washington field goal. But then the second quarter, Hammond would convert a 3rd and 20 with a 47-yard pass to Hatley. That would lead to a touchdown pass to his tight end Ramirez, and Dolphins had their first lead. Washington's first play from scrimmage after that touchdown, Morrison completed to Ronnie Ritter. Ritter was hit and fumbled, and Miami recovered and turned that into a field goal to extend the lead. But then on their next drive, Morrison would make 5 straight completions, gaining 60 yards in total. And then later find JaVale Nee for a 2-yard touchdown pass to equalize the game at 10. After Miami went 3 and out, Washington went 80 yards then in 9 plays. Morrison finding tight end Randy Wright for a 2-yard touchdown, making it 17-10 near the end of the first half. Dolphins would tie it up in the third quarter with Hammonds finding a Giafor for a 12-yard touchdown. And then after a Washington field goal, Hammonds drove them down again, hit White for 22, hit Ramirez for 22, and then Juan Mora ran it in for an 8-yard touchdown. And the Dolphins had the briefest of leads at 24-20. Then Randy Espino did what Randy Espino does, returned the kickoff 99 yards for a touchdown, and Commanders were back on top just like that. Then Washington, on their next drive, got another good Espino return, and then a Morrison to knee connection for 21 yards, which would lead to a 50-yard field goal, stretching the lead to 6. Miami, on their next drive, Hammonds found Lawrence Sanders for a 45-yard gain, and Miami would drive all the way to the Washington 3, but they were stopped short of the end zone, had to settle for a field goal, made it 30-27. And then Espino made another big play for Washington in the fourth quarter with an interception of Dean Hammonds, and returned it all the way to the Miami 25-yard line. 4 plays later, Morrison to Randy Wright for an 11-yard touchdown. That made it 40-27, Washington leading with 9:16 to go. But Dean Hammonds would respond for the Dolphins in just 3 plays. He hit Ramirez for 25, Sanders for 22, and then he would scramble using his legs, which he rarely does, and take it for a 17-yard touchdown. So Dean Hammonds with the rare rushing touchdown of the game made it 40-34. Miami then made a defensive stop, got the ball back, but were also then themselves forced to punt with about just over 5 minutes left to go in the game. And then play of the game, Russell Crowe picked off Jerome Morrison, returned it to the Washington 16-yard line. After a few more plays, Brockers ran it in from 1 yard out, and the crucial extra point was hit. So with 3:18 to go, the Dolphins took a 1-point lead. However, Washington was not done. They quickly drove down to the Miami 37-yard line, so in range for what could have been potentially a long field goal to win the game. But then Damon Lucas sacked Jerome Morrison for a big loss, pushing them out of field goal range. And on the next play, Morrison completed a pass to Rodrigo Gonzalez, but Jeremy Moreland was there, stripped the ball, and the Dolphins defense recovered, allowing them to run out the clock and win the game, 41-40, final score. Jerome Morrison, 444 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick on the day. Randy Espino did it all, 2 tackles for loss, 4 passes defended, an interception, and a 99-yard kickoff return touchdown. Dean Hammonds, 25 of 51, 395 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Damon Lucas had 4 sacks. Jose Sola had 6 tackles for loss. And James Garnett recovered 2 fumbles helping the Dolphins pull off the clutch win on Monday night. As for the rest of the Week 13 scoreboard, Cleveland defeated New England 16-6. Dominic Nku, 18 of 30, 125 yards passing, added another 46 yards on 8 rushing attempts. Carolina beat Indianapolis 27-11. Theo Scribner was 34 of 57, still playing in relief of the injured Dakota Link. He had 426 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Detroit blanked the New York Giants 25-0. Randall Hansen, 28 of 42 in that game for 289 yards, a touchdown, did have 3 interceptions. He also ran 10 times for 70 yards. New Orleans shocked the Jets, beating them by 30. Final score was 37-7 in that game. Landrum, one of his best games so far as a pro, 20 of 28, 165 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. Chicago beat the Baltimore Ravens 26-13. Gerald Lewis, 26 of 35, 190 yards and a touchdown, plus 42 rushing yards. Green Bay beat up Philadelphia 44-3. Joseph Garibay was 34 of 45 for 310 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Dallas got by Minnesota 23-6. Christopher Lee had a big game, 7 catches, 139 yards, and a touchdown for him. And then Sunday night, Denver beat Seattle 44-10. Ryan Johnson, 33 carries, 165 yards, and 2 touchdowns from his fullback position. So with that said, here are my choices for Players of the Week. Miguel Aguilera had a great game, 195 yards passing and 105 rushing, and a touchdown each. Carl Frost had 160 yards and 2 scores on 21 touches for the Packers. Ryan Johnson, as we just mentioned, 198 total yards from scrimmage and 2 scores on 35 touches. And then Donald Kelly of Buffalo, 242 yards on 12 catches for him. On the defensive side, Damon Lucas had 4 sacks for Miami. Tony McCura, 4 sacks for the Chiefs. Randy Espino, that incredible day for Washington. And then Kevin Cordova of the Vegas Raiders and Alan Laurent of the Chargers, 3 interceptions each on the day. Cordova had another 4 pass breakups to go along with those 3 interceptions. Definitely a career day for him. So, congratulations on those 9 players on being named as my Players of the Week for Week 13. As far as an injury update, luckily things were relatively minor last week. Jeffrey Jesse will be out next week with a sprained foot. Raul Hallett of the Panthers out next week with an ankle bruise. Another lineman, the Jets' David DiGirolamo, injured again, this time with a dislocated foot. The 34-year-old will be out a couple of weeks. And then Tampa Bay's young defensive end, Darryl Sadler, with a shoulder injury. He will miss a couple of weeks as well. So, here are where things stand in the AFC through Week 13. 4 tight division races still. Browns and Steelers now at 7-5. Titans and Jaguars all tied up at 6-6. Dolphins a game up on the Jets, but Jets do have the tiebreaker, so they both control their own destiny. And then Broncos up a game and a half on the Chiefs as well. We do have our first clinching scenario, which as we get closer to the end of the season, we'll have whole segments on clinching scenarios. Right now it's pretty simple. Broncos can clinch a playoff berth if they can get their 12th win next week. They will get at least no worse than a wild card. They can get to 12 wins. On the NFC side, we have a couple of division clinching scenarios. The Panthers can win the South if they win and the Saints lose next week. That would put them up 5 games with 4 to go. And then similarly, the Rams, if they win and the Seahawks lose, will be in a similar position. So Rams and Panthers have potential clinching scenarios. Cowboys are back in top on the East via tiebreakers, 9-3, along with the Commanders. And the Lions have only lost 3 games. 2 of those were to the Packers, but right now they have the better winning percentage, so they are in top of the North, a game ahead of Green Bay still. And now a quick peek at the draft order. So we have Baltimore moving up to the number 1 spot, Cincinnati falling on their bye week. Atlanta and Philadelphia moving up in the draft order. Detroit and New Orleans moving down. And Pittsburgh hopping into that top 18 spot as well, with the Browns now leading the AFC North and the Raiders leading the race for the last wild card spot. So obviously a lot of football still left to be played, but here are where we stand now. Oh, and the 2 traded picks, Houston's first rounder that goes to the Rams is now currently number 7. Tampa Bay's first rounder going to Detroit as part of the Kingery trade, currently 11th. So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, today we're going to talk about a few teams and look at the difference in cap space versus some expiring contracts. The first ones are going to be mostly driven by having a lot of players on expiring deals, and then we'll go from there. Obviously, exact numbers can't be known until negotiations start, but just looking at the volume of players and the general overall, you can get a pretty big sense of what kind of chunk of change these teams could be looking at. Obviously, a lot of these are veterans. They're 29, 30, 31, even older than that. So that's not to say that these guys will even get offers from their current teams, much less if they will accept whatever the teams do choose to bring forward. But just to give kind of a scope of what some of these teams are looking at in terms of extensions and re-signings. First team we're going to take a look at is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers have a nice, comfortable $55.2 million in cap space currently set aside for next year. But these are the guys that are all in, all of them on expiring contracts. And then just to give you a couple of quick hits, Alex Williams is their top receiver right now with 520 receiving yards. 26-year-old, I believe, had a 5th-year option that was picked up, and that is now finishing up. So now it's time for a long-term deal for him if they want to keep him around. Pittsburgh is also looking at losing their top 3 tacklers. So right now their 3 tackling leaders for the 2026 season are Rizzi, Gomez Rodriguez, and Cook. So their linebacker and their 2 safeties. All 3 of those guys are on expiring deals. And then don't forget, of course, Vaughn Johnson, one of a trio of just incredible linemen that they have there in Pittsburgh. 86 overall, although at age 30. So yeah, $55 million is a lot. It could go really fast if they're looking to sign some of these guys, especially a wide receiver and a bunch of defensive stars. So yeah, it could be an interesting offseason there in the Steel City. Even more so for the Dallas Cowboys, who on paper it looks like they're set up for success with close to $82 million in cap space next year. But that's going to go real fast because, yeah, I mean, you look at Kevin Escobar, who's above 90 as an offensive tackle. Even at age 30, you got to figure he's got some good seasons left. They've got their leading wide receiver, I think, as defenses have been focused on Christopher Lee. Antonio Arellano has had a great season, 989 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns, both of those leading the team. And then you've got that amazing defensive tackle duo of Eric Simon and Elliot Grossman, who have so far this year combined for 67 tackles for loss and 16 sacks. That's a lot of defensive production tied up in 2 30-year-olds. So we'll see if any of those are brought back and at what kind of expense. You've also got other young players in kicker Michael Cox, who's 28, and Jorge Mendez, their free safety, who's also 28. Michael DeWitt is 28, and the Cowboys are just getting off losing an edge rusher last year to free agency. So you got to think DeWitt will be a big focus there. And, of course, Cecilio Fuentes, who has stepped in admirably after the trade away of Jesse Knoll. He's currently 30. So will the team be playing him? They've gotten to see Bam Bozeman get some good snaps. So what do they decide to do with the quarterback position? They turned down Alex Henderson's 5th-year option, presumably looking for a long-term contract where they can strike a deal and save some money. So yeah, as you can see, just a long list of names, a lot of decisions left to be made, um, a lot of pieces who are going to chip away at that $82 million should the Cowboys decide to make an offer. Some more teams in similar positions. I want to talk about the Carolina Panthers, who have over $60 million in space, but have, let's be clear, their entire offensive line on expiring contracts. Mendenhall, Caruso, Eggleston, Whitaker, Begul, like just all those contracts are up. Mendenhall's only 28. Eggleston's only 28. Caruso can play almost any position, but he has 30, though he has 88 overall. So many questions, and that's to say nothing of Fernando Owens and their former first-round pick Marco Thompson, who, another case of them declining a fifth-year option. We'll see if that involves signing him to an immediate, maybe cheaper long-term deal. But yeah, that's a huge amount of offensive production when you're looking at re-signing your entire offensive line. $60 million is going to go really, really quick. Another team, unsurprisingly, staring down the barrel of paying a lot of good players is the Miami Dolphins, who are just short of $70 million, but have one of the best defensive ends by overall in Damon Lucas, who's on an expiring contract at age 30. Great kicker in David Genter, who is 33. Kenny White, Ramirez, also 30. Jose Sola is 30. Robert Anderson's 31. Lawrence Sanders, the proverbial young chicken of the group, at 28. But yeah, a lot of big numbers, a lot of aging players. Kenny White, been fantastic this season, 1,255 receiving yards and 12 touchdowns, leading the team in both. Ramirez is third on the team with 868 yards and 10 touchdowns. Now, obviously, it helps that a lot of that production being doled out by Dean Hammonds. But still, White and Ramirez have had fantastic years. Entering age 31 seasons next year, though. We'll see what Miami decides to do with that. And then, of course, Damon Lucas and Jose Sola anchoring that defensive line. Some decisions to be made there as well. Let's also, Lucas and Sola combined 45 tackles for loss and 12 sacks. So very, very productive, very good years. Are definitely going to want big contracts to stick around into their twilight football years. And then two more teams I want to talk about who are obviously very short of funds. The first one is the Denver Broncos. Broncos only have $20 million in space for next season already. And let's be clear, pretty much all of that, and maybe even more than 100% of that, could be claimed by retiring players, depending on who decides to retire and how much bonus they have left over that the Broncos need to pay out that's going to turn into dead cap. So all of this could already be elementary, depending on who retires, and that $20 million could already be spoken for in terms of future bonus money. But if it's not, I don't know if it'll be enough to keep kicker Ron Downing, strong safety Edwin Carter. Ryan Johnson, they have been playing him at fullback, I think trying to get him onto like a fullback pay scale. Jason Hinton, Ramon Eubanks, probably not coming back, being past 30, and I don't know where the money would come from. All these guys, quality players, who, if they decide to go another year, could very well find themselves in free agency looking for a new team. Washington's got it a little bit better just in terms of an absolute number. They've got $53 million in space, but they are also looking at possible dead cap from retirements from older players and a somewhat longer list, including two quality tight ends in Sebastian Moore and Randy Wright, who have both been very productive for them. A stellar edge rusher in David Cunningham, but he's going to be 32 next year. Even their kicker, Jeffrey Leon, is going to be 33. So could be hard-pressed to find the money to pay some of these older guys, especially with the bill from so many retiring players possibly coming due. But a lot of good players on that roster, and potentially some free agents if other teams are willing to throw them some money to pay out their last couple of years. So yeah, for these two teams, you probably won't know more until the end of the season, until we get to retirements, but definitely want to bring it up as something to watch as well. So, week 14 is our final bye week. Kansas City and Tampa Bay have the final byes, and then it will be 4 weeks of everyone playing as we do our playoff push. We start things off in primetime on Thursday night with the Giants going to Minnesota to face the Vikings. At noon, we have Philadelphia going to Washington to play the Commanders. Philadelphia got their first ever franchise win over the Commanders earlier this season in Philly, but now they're going to be on the road. And SSEC likes Washington by 3 scores in that one. Cleveland is going to Denver to play the Broncos. Denver, a big favorite there as well. And then a game with huge playoff implications, Pittsburgh at Las Vegas. Betting line currently is wide open, wherever you want to go on that. Vegas currently is the 7 seed. Pittsburgh is the 8 seed, just outside of the wildcard race and tied, but minus a tiebreaker in the AFC North. So this would be a huge way for Pittsburgh to do themselves a favor and catch up in the wildcard race and leapfrog Vegas for that last wildcard spot. Also in the afternoon, we have Green Bay at Dallas, another very close line as two teams who are looking, setting their sights on the playoffs, going to go head-to-head. That could be a big game with seeding implications. If Dallas ends up, both of them could end up winning their division, in which case it becomes important. Both of them could end up being wild cards, in which case seeding will be very important, or head-to-head will be very important in seeding. So a huge game there. Sunday night we have Houston at the Carolina Panthers. Panthers look to be a big favorite there. And then Monday night we have Detroit at Chicago. Detroit is a road favorite in that one. But it is a division game, a rivalry game, so absolutely anything could happen. So a great slate of games for Week 14. Hope you will stick around and check those out with us next week. That is everything I have for this edition of the SimNFL Show. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening. And to all users in all of our sims, I say good luck and have fun.